pigs gone wild. Researchers found that Texas has the worst feral hog problem in the entire country. Wild hogs cause a lot of destruction, and researchers estimate around $2.5 billion in agricultural damage.
Texas farmers just stopped a wild boar invasion in 30 days, and the results stunned everyone. Fields that were losing thousands per night are stable because every herd is tracked on camera, every route is mapped, and entire groups are taken in one controlled catch.
That if they'll go behind that planter and tractor, once they've left the field, they've figured out that the corn seeds that are quite expensive are in a line, in a row, in those fields, and they're literally...
With a gate that closes from a phone at the exact second. Yields are recovering, costs are falling, and county networks are sharing live feeds to lock down new arrivals before they breed. The plan works today, but what happens when the herds change tactics tomorrow? The perfect storm. Wild pigs came to North America with early expeditions because the safest way to carry food across an unknown land was to bring animals that could walk and eat along the way. And some escaped and learned to fend for themselves and to root for tubers and to raid easy calories where people left grain and scraps. Over time, those feral lines mixed with Eurasian wild boar that wealthy landowners brought in as game because they wanted a hard challenge on private ground, and those crosses created a single animal that grows fast and learns even faster and survives anywhere it can find water and cover. Texas gave that animal almost everything it needed without trying to, because the state holds pine and oak and mesquite and thick brush and open breaks and river bottoms and tank dams and low spots that stay wet through most dry spells. So a family group can feed through the dark and lie quiet through the day and keep moving without being seen. The winters rarely kill the young, even in bad years, and the list of predators that can handle a full-grown sow is short and scattered. A single female can breed at an age when a rancher would still call a cow a calf, and litters come fast and litters come often, and the daughters reach breeding age while their mother is still strong, which means one family group can become several in the space of a couple of seasons. Each new group knows where to walk and where to hide, because the matriarch teaches those paths as if she were passing down a map. People made the spread worse without meaning to, because bait set for deer became a free buffet for pigs, and soft holes left in fences became doors. And a few bad actors moved live animals to start weekend hunts, and that practice seeded permanent colonies in counties that had never seen a hoof before until the dots on the map turned into a smear. Texas law tried to fight back with almost no limits on private land because it is legal to hunt them at any time of day and with almost any method. Yet the numbers kept rising because the targets many hunters chose were impressive males that do not drive population growth, while the sows and the juveniles kept the engine running. The result was an invasion that cut across all lines of land use, and the first time a new farmer felt it was the morning when a field looked wrong and there was no weather to blame and no gate left open. And he realized that the enemy was not a person with a truck, but a family of animals that had decided the farm was a pantry. If that is the force on the land, then how do you stop it without turning the whole year into a chase that drains the bank and the spirit? And if the numbers climb this fast, what stops a single night from wiping out an entire season? The billion-dollar nightmare. A wild boar does not need to consume a field to destroy it because the power is in the neck and in the shoulders and in the hard cartilaginous snout that can pry the surface open like a shovel. And that rooting behavior is a constant drive that does not care what is planted if the ground is soft and the smell of food is near. A sounder crosses a pivot and the stalks go down and the rows lose their shape and the soil lifts out of its bed. So the next day the farmer finds corn that cannot be gathered by a header and wheel tracks that now hold holes deep enough to twist an axle and black water standing near torn drip lines. The first thought is repair, yet the deeper loss is time, because every hour spent patching pipe and dragging in dirt and smoothing a rut is an hour stolen from harvest and from planting the next field and from the work that keeps the place on schedule. The damage spreads beyond rows because the same rooting that pulls up tubers and grubs also breaks the surface near a creek and sends silt into clear water, and that cloud drifts into a pond, and the fish start to fail, and the water the cattle drink tastes wrong, and the test strips confirm what the eyes already told you, because the numbers do not lie when nutrients spike and oxygen falls. Ground nesting birds lose their season when eggs that once hid under grass show in open circles, and deer fawns that should lie unseen during the first days are suddenly found and taken, and the night chorus along low ground goes quiet because a chain of small losses adds up. The worst part is the collateral ruin, because most of the yield does not vanish into stomachs, but falls to trampling and to the tearing of the earth, and to the kind of broken row that a machine cannot harvest cleanly, and that means a field can lose half its value even if only a small part was eaten. That hurts a family in a way that is hard to explain on paper because stress does not show on a ledger and sleep does not count in a column. And when a season is built on tight margins, this kind of loss can turn a decent year into a bad one, and a bad one into a year that threatens the note. The insurance agent can only do so much because soil washed away is soil that took centuries to build, and water fouled by wallows does not clear in a day. The problem is not a single bite. It is a pattern of movement and habit and learning by a smart animal that passes the lessons along. And the only way to match that is with a pattern of our own, because a single night with luck will not shift the curve, and a single weekend with friends will not hold back a growth rate that looks like a rising tide. So what shape does a solution take if it must be smarter than the enemy and steadier than luck, and if most of the loss is not eating but trampling what tool targets movement instead of mouths? Open season failed. On paper, it looked perfect because the state allowed year-round hunting and almost any lawful method, and that should have meant relentless pressure and shrinking numbers. Yet the pigs increased because people followed human instincts instead of biological math, and the target many hunters chose was the largest visible male with the biggest tusks, while the sows and the young kept breeding. A male can service many females, and when that male is removed, another male steps in almost at once. So a string of successful hunts that removes several big boars does little to dent the next wave, while the matriarch at the center of a family group remains on the ground and shows her daughters where to eat and where to bed, and where a human leaves a trap that smells like steel. Bounties sounded like a clean market solution, and in practice they created a dark corner where a few bad actors learned that a small pen full of pigs could be converted into fast cash across county lines. And some programs even pushed people to feed more often just to draw pigs into an area where a payment waited, and the unintended result was more reproduction and wider spread. Other states showed the warning in plain sight because a limited range turned into a statewide problem after years of open hunts and people moving animals to hunt, and it became clear that a recreational mindset could not solve a biological engine that turns calories into more pigs at a speed that defies casual effort. The biology is simple and merciless because to hold a population steady, you must remove a very large share of breeding animals year after year. And to reduce it, you must take even more. And the only way to do that without teaching survivors to avoid everything you set out is to capture entire family groups at once, so there is no elder left to teach the young. That shift in thinking changed the culture on the land because it replaced action for the sake of action with slower moves based on observation and timing. And it felt strange at first to wait while a camera showed pigs coming and going from a pen that was baited and open and harmless. Yet the results spoke in full traps and quieter nights. When the numbers became the guide, people saw that patience is not weakness, because patience in this case is a trap you set for the whole problem rather than a piece of it. And the quiet night after a complete capture feels different because the ground really is empty, and not just empty of the loudest animal. If trophies do not slow birth rates, who should be the target when every litter resets the clock? Intelligence. First, the plan that works begins with watching, and the best way to watch is with cellular trail cameras that send images and short clips through the night and at dawn. And those images arrive with timestamps, so a farmer builds a record that shows exactly when a group arrives and which path it uses and where it lingers, and how many bodies enter an opening and how many hold back. For a week or two, nothing happens except learning, because the family that moves through a place keeps appointments almost like a shift, and if no one disturbs them, they repeat that schedule and grow confident that the pen is a safe place and that the bait is a constant gift. The next part of the method is a corral trap large enough to hold the whole family, and that pen is left open for days, and the bait starts outside and moves to the mouth and finally moves deep into the circle. And the camera confirms that hesitation is gone because the old sow that once stood at the edge now lowers her head in the center, and the yearlings that used to hang back now step inside without looking up. When that picture is clear, the gate is no longer a tripwire that can spring at the worst time because the trigger is held by a person who is watching live on a phone or a tablet and who counts heads and knows the group and waits for the last body to cross the line and then pushes a button that drops the door with no warning and no clang that scares off another group 3 pastures away. This one change prevents partial catches that teach survivors to avoid all steal and all bait. And it lets a farmer take an entire problem out of a pasture in a single motion. And the difference shows up at once because a place that used to feel busy at midnight suddenly feels like it did years ago. Night work still matters because not every place suits a pen and not every veteran pig will enter a structure, so teams use thermal optics and quiet rifles to clear survivors in fields before those bodies reach the rows, and in heavy cover where cameras cannot see and panels are hard to place. Dog handlers work with packs trained to hold without harm until a person can move in and finish with a clean shot and a short drag. On large ranches with open country and high numbers, a helicopter team can sweep several square miles in a morning when cameras show heavy concentration, and that rapid strike keeps numbers from spilling into neighbors while ground teams set new traps. Everything ties back to the camera and to the log and to the rule that nothing is rushed because the whole point is to act only when the odds guarantee a complete result and to avoid the half measures that teach the next generation to be harder to catch. If the herd thinks as a family, what happens when the plan waits for the whole family to walk in together? Quick ask, if this field strategy helps subscribe and hit the bell so you catch new playbooks and tools before the next herd shows up. The 4-phase system. The first phase is intelligence, and it lasts at least a full week, and often 2, because a week of images is worth a month of guessing. Cameras go where sign is freshest along travel edges, near water, near headlands, and at the ends of rows, and every picture is logged with time, and the family size is noted, and the path is marked on a simple map, and nothing else is done. The second phase is placement and trust building because a corral that can hold a whole group must sit exactly where the pigs want to be, and it must feel like a safe room. That means bait is free for days, and the gate is tied open, and humans stay away so that scent fades. And the camera confirms when anxiety is gone, and when the entire group enters deeply and eats calmly. And that moment is the signal to prepare. The third phase is action across layers, because not every acre is the same, and not every family behaves the same. Open pasture may call for a helicopter crew after dawn, while crop ground near towns is best handled by a small night team with thermal eyes and suppressed rifles, and heavy brush near creeks may call for dog teams that can hold a trap-smart boar. And every layer has to run on the same nights, so that no place becomes a refuge that feeds tomorrow's raid. The fourth phase never ends because it is prevention and early response. Cameras stay up to catch new arrivals, and neighbors talk through group chats that share images and times and directions of travel. And when a new sounder appears, 3 properties drop gates within the same hour so that animals do not simply jump a fence and learn a new lesson. The routine then resets because the land is never empty for long, and the job is not to clear Texas, but to hold a place below the damage line month after month and season after season. The proof that the routine is winning shows up as calm mornings and clean rows and clear water and a ledger that no longer bleeds from surprise repairs. When a plan works, it feels boring, and that is the point, because boring is the sign that the crisis has turned into management and that the land has its rhythm back. If this kind of order can be built on one ranch during a busy season, why not across a whole county? And what would that map look like by next year? Money and meat. A full trap can move to a holding facility that is inspected like any plant that handles domestic livestock, and grain feeding adds weight, and processors turn a problem into meat, and that meat sells into local markets and sometimes into export. The check will not pay for the entire program, yet it defrays bait and fuel and panel repair, and that helps real budgets in hard years. The larger savings come from avoided disaster because a pivot that does not need emergency parts and a field that does not need a replant both free up cash and time. A crew that spends more hours on plan rather than on patches is a crew that brings in yield on schedule, and that rhythm shows up on the balance sheet and also at the table where people finally sleep. The human network matters as much as any tool because pigs ignore property lines, and a single owner cannot hold the line if the neighbor runs a place for weekend hunts and leaves sows alone. The most successful areas are the ones where several families commit to the same routine and share images and times and trigger nights together, and treat a fence line as a line of coordination and not a line of division. There are real barriers because cameras and panels and thermal optics and helicopter hours and trained dog teams cost money, and some properties have weak cellular coverage that limits the most powerful tools, and some landowners will not join because they are busy or skeptical, or they like to keep pigs for guests who want a quick hunt. The law that bans transporting live pigs is hard to enforce across a state this large, so some people still seed new hotspots that undo months of steady work. Grant programs and cost-share ideas can help with the price of a starter kit that includes a large corral and a smart gate and a set of cameras and a bait budget for the first season. Counties can host shared equipment that moves from ranch to ranch on a schedule, and producer groups can run training days where people learn to set panels and to place cameras and to read the data and to work in sync with neighbors. The goal is not perfect eradication, because that is not realistic with current tools and current laws and current budgets, but steady suppression is possible, and many places are now holding populations well below the line where fields fail and where water turns and where wildlife loses a whole season. When a region commits to this integrated routine, the numbers fall and stay low, and claims drop and repairs slow, and the noise at midnight fades, and the work begins to feel like farming again, rather than fighting a war that never ends. The problem was never a monster in the dark. It was a clever animal following habits that people accidentally rewarded, and the fix was to slow down, watch hard, and act only when a full result was certain. Texas farmers learned to use cameras, smart gates, and shared timing to take whole groups at once, then kept the watch running so new arrivals never settled in. The land is not perfect, and pigs will not vanish, yet rows stand longer, water clears sooner, and mornings feel like mornings again because steady work beat fast chaos. This is not luck, and not noise. It is patience turned into muscle, and when neighbors run it together, the night finally belongs to them. If you want more step-by-step playbooks built from real fieldwork, and you want the alerts the moment they drop, then subscribe and turn on notifications and share this with a neighbor who is fighting the same fight so more farms can turn the night back into quiet work and steady sleep.